It took shape on paper in a back room here. A handful of men plotting a migration under arms to finish off Nazi Germany. The biggest, most detailed blueprint in the history of warfare. Yet it hung on the whim of a greater power. That an Allied storm would break on the European mainland was no secret. But when and where, each side debated the options. Calais, just over 20 miles from England, Hitler's generals thought so.
That was the obvious place. You had the ports there, everything. The main road systems and the road to Paris. That was the obvious place. But of course, if the Germans had been smart enough, you should have figured the obvious place is the one you don't pick.
The Supreme Commander, U.S. General Dwight Eisenhower, picked a 60-mile stretch of Normandy, 5 times farther off than Calais, but less obvious and less defended, for the moment. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel was racing to finish an unbreachable defensive wall. Russia was pushing its Western allies to hurry to take the heat off the Eastern Front. They had to land in time to leave 3 mild months to build up for the final push. D-Day had to have just enough moon at night for pilots, low tide at dawn to deal with Rommel's barriers. And one thing more. Here, where the only sure thing about the weather was that 2 days out of 3 would be bad, it had to be calm enough to cross and get ashore. June 5th looked the best bet to let all hell break loose.
It sums up the demands of total war in the first half, second half indeed, of the 20th century. Both on the civilian side and the service side, everything had to be directed towards Operation Overlord.
The key to beating Germany into surrender was the inexhaustible resources of the United States. 2 million men and their materiel had poured across the Atlantic. Civilians were moved out as southern England became an armed camp. The owner of Southwark House near Portsmouth was one of them. As D-Day neared, this was the Allied nerve center. Eisenhower and Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, the ground commander, would meet at the Golden Lion for a brown beer and a lemonade, respectively. No hint they were about to bet everything on one roll of the dice.
And he just used to say hello to us, you know, good morning, girls, and possibly about the weather. And he would say the usual. And I would say, very well, I'll bring it in to you. And I used to bring it in. They used to sit at the table with their, I'd take it, maps and documents and things like that, and stay for, I suppose, perhaps an hour.
She got no gossip out of it. Secrecy was obsessive. The big map at Southwark House came from a toy company, and the men who installed it stayed under house arrest till Overlord was underway. England's south coast was quarantined for 10 miles inland. To cloud the Allies' real plans, there were whole fake armies and a welter of conflicting reports from double agents. Faced with a lack of harbors, the Allies arranged to bring their own. 2 million tons in 500 pieces. Designed to last a couple of months, still clashing with the waves at Arromanches. But there was no outsmarting the storms that on June 4th put the invasion on hold. Nerves. How long could something this big stay hidden? Boredom and seasickness drained the waiting troops. The June 6th outlook came, not good, but tolerable. Ike pondered, then said, okay, let's go. And what he called the Great Crusade set off toward the beaches. Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, Sword.
We rather assume that it was a foregone conclusion, but it absolutely was not. And it teetered on the brink, and it could so easily have gone wrong. And if it had gone wrong, the consequences would have been absolutely unimaginable.
In Bayeux, bike racer Guillaume Mercader, intelligence chief of the resistance, tuned in the BBC and heard,
Il fait chaud à Suez.
It's hot in Suez, and he knew the maps his men had made were about to help liberate them.
Je n'ai pas beaucoup dormi parce que la nuit a été très longue.
I didn't sleep a lot. It was a very long night. It began just after midnight, bombings and airborne landings. German defenders were confused, key generals away at war games, and the high command wouldn't believe this was it. Had Rommel been there, it might have been different, but he was in Germany for his wife's birthday. Field Marshal Rommel may have been absent, but the gremlin that works against the best-laid human plans was not. Allied pilots missed their drop zones. Overloaded paratroopers drowned or were scattered. Waves and sandbars sank the landing vehicles.
It was absolutely chaos. Not people not knowing what to do, what the opposition was trying to do, and get the two mingled, and it was bitter. We lost a few boys after us. We lost quite a few, but it was like walking in a dream.
U.S. troops missed Utah Beach by a mile. A good thing, because where they did land was lightly defended. But deadly Omaha Beach was nearly a write-off, even after ships pulled in and blasted the cliffs from a few hundred yards. Total Allied casualties, 10,000 in one day. It would have been hard to convince the lost, the wounded, the shell-shocked, but by day's end, as the host crawled up and inland, the top brass could say it had all gone pretty much according to plan. Richard Blystone, CNN, Normandy.